Welcome to our podcast, Voces deL Peru de la Casa Cultural Peruana, transmitted live via Facebook and YouTube from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We have started our podcast. Bienvenidos a nuestro podcast, Voces deL Perú de la Casa Cultural Peruana, transmitido en vivo vía Facebook y YouTube desde Toronto, Ontario, Canadá. Empezamos nuestro podcast.
Cultural and economic connections as well. With that said, I would like to invite the Ambassador of Argentina, Josefina Martinez Lampilla, to come and speak.
Thank you, Nick. Dear guests, good morning, and welcome to our Remembrance ceremony for the Latin American community in Canada. Deputy Minister of National Defense, Mr. Bill Matthews, Mayor General St. Louis, representing the Chief of the Defense Staff, General R, Madam Vice Chief of the Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Francis Allen, Madam Dean of the Latin American Group, the Ambassador of Panama, my dear friends, fellow ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Director of Brazil and Southern Congregations at Global Affairs Canada, Ms. Jennifer Lalonde, Deputy Director of Western Hemisphere at the Department of National Defense, Mr. Alex Miranda, active members and veterans of the Canadian Armed Forces, honorable defense and military attachés, dear members of the Argentine and the Latin American communities in Ottawa, Gatineau, members of the press, members of the Latin American Soldiers Committee in Canada, distinguished guests. My heartfelt thank you all for coming to this stunning and sobering landmark, the Military Cemetery of Canada, to participate in the annual Remembrance ceremony dedicated to the Latin American community in Canada. I have the honor to represent my beloved country, Argentina, today as the co-host nation of this year's ceremony, where we gather together to honor and pay a most deserved tribute to those Argentine and Latin American soldiers who volunteered to fight alongside Canada and the Allies during the First and Second World War. And it's only fitting that this ceremony is taking place within the Latin American Heritage Month, as designated by Canadian Parliament in 2018, as an acknowledgement of the contribution of Latin Americans to the diversity and prosperity of the Canadian society. We're all aware that Latin Americans have been honorably serving in the Canadian Armed Forces for many decades now, contributing to this great country defense efforts and national identity. Many of our countries also carry out cooperation activities with the Department of National Defense, the Canadian Armed Forces, and the defense sector. In fact, Argentina has been a member of the Canadian Military Training Program since 1998. At the same time, the Canadian military industry also has links with our country, from Bell 412 helicopters, the modernization of Hercules aircrafts, and Puma helicopters for the Argentine Antarctic program. Argentina is also leading the organization of the next Conference of Defense Ministers of the Americas for the biennium 2023-2024, and we look forward to the participation of National Defense Minister Bill Blair. However, the story of Argentine and Latin Americans' contributions and volunteering is an often overlooked chapter of Canadian military involvement during both World Wars. And this ceremony, as already said, is meant precisely to bring that to the forefront of the Canadians' public attention. In this sense, let me recognize Capitan Rey Garcia Salas from the 33rd Signal Regiment of the Royal Canadian Army, whose thorough and detailed historical research on the lives, deeds, and military achievements of the Latin American soldiers during both conflicts has been the inspiration and the point of departure for this long overdue acknowledgement. More than 90 Argentines joined the expeditionary force of the Canadian Armed Forces during the Great War, a fact that it's also not that well known in my country, probably due to the larger contingents which joined the Italian forces, more than 32,000, the French forces, almost 6,000, and the British forces, almost 5,000. These figures also reflects the demographics of my country, Argentina, at the time, when almost 30% of our people was first-generation immigrants from Europe, a proportion deemed not to be equivalent by any other country in the world at the time. As a proud member of the military family myself, I'm deeply touched by their stories of sacrifice and honor. Among them, let me recall Lieutenant Ian Catherine Wishart, a religious sister and professional nurse born in Buenos Aires in 1891 to Kate Mason, her Manitoban mother. Lieutenant Wishart volunteered at Camp Hughes, Manitoba, and enlisted on November 22, 1916 in Kingston, Ontario. She served in the Canadian Army Medical Corps in France and England, where she faced great adversity. Lieutenant Wishart, serving at Canadian General Hospital No. 1, played a vital role in providing care and support to wounded soldiers. Her commitment to duty, even in the face of great danger, was commendable and demonstrated her unwavering dedication to her profession and the well-being of the soldiers. Fast forward 2 decades, come World War II, about 5,000 Argentines, including 400 women, volunteered and fought in this conflict. In such capacity, they did not receive a war pension, nor did they request it. During this conflict, it was particularly Argentine pilots who stood out. 550 of them fought, out of which 122 died in combat. Take, for instance, the figure of Ricardo Moreno, an intrepid pilot trained in Canada that fought in Europe and came back to Ottawa many decades later in 2007 to join Canadian veteran Duane Daly at the Remembrance ceremony also hosted by the Argentine Embassy at the Canada's Aviation Museum. Or Bernardo Noel de la Minard, the most decorated Argentine pilot who carried out 345 combat missions with the Royal Air Force and the Royal Canadian Air Force. Or Maureen Dunlop, known as pilot of Las Pampas, la piloto de Las Pampas, who flew 38 different types of aircrafts from factories or workshops to air bases in her capacity of Air Transport Auxiliary of the Canadian Armed Forces. Or Kenneth Langley Charney, known as Black Knight, for his heroic achievements in attacking German bombers head-on and shooting down 12, damaging other 16 during the Battle of Malta. Dear guests, I invite you to remember and honor the sacrifice, courage, selflessness, and vision of those who risked and lost their lives in fighting for principles and values that transcended them. Life and human dignity, liberty, freedom, justice, sovereignty, territorial integrity, democracy and human rights, all of which should not and must not be taken for granted, especially in the times we're living in, and are worth courageously defending today and forever. In concluding, I would like to convey my gratitude to the National Military Cemetery authorities, as well as to the Latin American Soldiers Committee in Canada, the co-hosts of this ceremony, and without whose knowledgeable work, this event would have not taken place.
Today, we gather to commemorate the second Latin American Remembrance ceremony, a profound event that reverberates with the solid spirit that unites us all. I extend my deepest gratitude to the respected diplomatic corps, our dedicated Canadian Armed Forces members, military attaches, political groups, and the numerous communities, government organizations, and my family gracing this occasion. Your presence grants immeasurable weight to the cause we stand for, and your steadfast support is the bedrock upon which we build our tribute to these unsung heroes. This year, our hearts are warmed by the presence of Argentina, the host nation for this solemn commemoration. With the full backing of the Canadian Armed Forces, this annual Latin American Remembrance ceremony, central to the LASC's mission, stands as a vital reminder of sacrifice and solidarity. It harmoniously aligns with the celebration of the Latin American Heritage Month in Canada, where communities and serving members unite in homage to the brave Latin Americans who donned the Canadian military uniform during the world wars. Their unwavering commitment to the cause of freedom is not just acknowledged, but celebrated. In our relentless efforts to raise historical awareness, the LASC has composed a rich tapestry of remembrance. Latin American war stories have found their right place in our nation's history, etched on the pages of newspapers and magazines, ensuring the brave and sacrifices of these soldiers spread through every corner of Canadian society. Among captivating graphical exhibitions, the faces and names of these unsung heroes have been unveiled. Their compelling war narratives, etching deep connections and fostering profound appreciation for the past. On a significant day, April 24, 2023, at the Mexican Embassy in Ottawa, the LASC proudly unveiled the Latin American Soldiers Remembrance Book, Volume 1. More than just a book, it is a bridge across time, connecting generations and ensuring the legacy of these courageous soldiers endures. Remind us of their exceptional valor. They, alongside other Canadian soldiers, paved the road for us, giving us a better future with freedom and respect for human rights. Among these heroes stand Pilot Officer Bernardo Noel Marie de Laminat, as was mentioned by the Ambassador of Argentina, whose tale of survival, resilience, and unwavering determination resonates deeply. He was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. He joined the Royal Canadian Air Force in the World War II, taking into account overcoming languages barriers and impressively completing 300 combat missions before joining the Gaulle's Free French Aviation. Similarly, as mentioned by the Ambassador of Argentina, North Sister Iona Catherine Wishart born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, exemplifies firm dedication and courage, serving even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, enduring the horrors of war, the care for others. Tragically, on May 19, 1918, during a German bombarding raid at the #1 Canadian General Hospital, Sister Wishart continued to care for the injured soldiers despite suffering from nervous shock and neurasthenia. Her unwavering commitment is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In the face of today's challenges, we must draw upon the spirit of unity and courage exemplified by these soldiers. Just as they transcended cultural boundaries, we too rise above our differences. The issues we confront, social divisions, environment concerns, global conflicts, demand a united front. We must learn from their example and work together, irrespective of our backgrounds, to address the pressing issues that affect us all. We possess the power to make a difference, just as these Latin American soldiers left an indelible mark on Canada. We too can shape the future of our nation and the world. Let their legacy inspire us. Let their values guide us. Together, hand in hand, let us work tirelessly to create a brighter tomorrow for generations to come. In honoring their sacrifice, we secure a future of unity, strength, and enduring peace. These heroes are not alone anymore. We become their family again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Act of remembrance, acto de recuerdo. Ils ne vieilliront pas comme nous, qui leur avons survécu. La edad no los cansará, ni los años condenan. And at the going down of the sun and in the morning, we shall remember them.
On behalf of the Canadian Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Francis Allen, Vice Chief of On behalf of all veterans of all wars, Captain Terry Hunter. On behalf of the Latin American community, Pepe Requena Cortez, President of Casa Cultural Peruana, and Rene Cordia Bonilla, President of the Latinos Montreal. In memory of all those lost, Captain Ray Salas Garcia, accompanied by Chief And we have visitors today from the Maple Leaf March. So on behalf of Maple Leaf March, Chair Stephen Funk. I would now like to invite Councillor Pedro Xavier Archono of the Argentinian Embassy to read.
The poem that I will share with you, Bombardment, was written by Gustavo Casarocen, an Argentine veteran who fought in the Malvinas Islands defending Argentine sovereignty. He is counted among those best tradition of war poetry, continuing the trend of the poets of the Great War. His voice is profound, ironic at times, often tender, and always heartbreakingly human. And the poem ends with a tribute to the figure of the mother, which we saw fitting since today is Mother's Day in Argentina. Bombardment. The kites came back all together, wrapped in flames with the ripe tails of sheep from the sky. Once hanging above, they kissed our foreheads and whispered in our ears, "Good night, son, may you rest." The night fell, broken glass from an overly high skyline, and the son of May fell among the bloody mane of an oak. Also the warm fell in the territory of that catfish, and the wait in vain. The vain return. The afternoon hanging from the hook, and between the hands, a bowl half filled with bolled milk, and honey on an almost black toast, and that smell between the nails. Scent of gin, scent of earth, scent of smoke, scent of absent fish. And suddenly, the dogs of childhood would appear to lie next to us, and they would smell of fear and lick us. And then at last, the silence. At last, the silence to sleep for a little while or forever. Good night, comrade. Good night. That soldier never knew from which nibble apple he had picked out like a worm into the word. It must have been the reason why he walked his willowy jaunt in the drizzle, hiding a little those parched fish eyes, and seemed to bounce across the landscape with the insistence of the bug that bumps into a lamppost. That must have been the reason why he went off to look for himself, so as not to find himself when he came back, and not to see himself, and all those things you think of. It must have been like that. So it must have been that he didn't hear the warning voice or the whistle. And when the black wind blew through his holes, that soldier shouted, "Mom!" The only thing he yelled was that word.
As the co-host for this ceremony in 2024, we will have the country of Peru.
Urge selflessness, disbelief in doing their part for our global community, and thank them. Today and forever we will remember them. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to thank all of you for attending and invite you back to the main building for food and some light refreshments, and to visualize the display of the Latin American soldiers. As I mentioned at the start of the ceremony, I'd like to thank especially the Embassy of Argentina for helping us with the ceremony. I'd like to thank the Vice Chief of the Defense Staff for the Canadian Armed Forces service today, as well as for their full support of the ceremony. As we concluded the first ceremony, I'll invite Giuseppe Marconi, as well as Major General Sandouli, to announce next year's cohort.
We have reached the end of our podcast, Voces deL Peru, de la Casa Cultural Peruana, broadcasted live via Facebook and YouTube from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Thank you for tuning in. See you soon. Hemos llegado al final de nuestro podcast Voces deL Perú de la Casa Cultural Peruana, transmitido en vivo vía Facebook y YouTube desde Toronto, Ontario, Canadá. Gracias por su sintonía. Hasta pronto.